Welcome back to Rockstock Channel. It is Thursday, September 26th, and we are concluding a very busy climate week here in New York City, at which critical mineral security was a hot topic at all events. And Brazil was a major focus. Sigma Lithium CEO Ana Cabral-Gardner commented to me that Climate Week in New York was now as or more relevant than the COP events she regularly has attended in the Middle East. Sigma's inaugural Investor Day took place in the same location at NASDAQ as last year's inaugural Lithium Valley Brazil event, which highlighted the vast potential of Minas Gerais as a lithium jurisdiction. I recall then meeting Chris Gale of Latin Resources for the first time at that event last spring. Sigma's rise to a Tier 1 producer over the last year, Latin's buyout from the lithium industry's greatest spodumene success story, Pilbara Minerals, and AMG Critical Minerals ribbon cutting of their first lithium hydroxide plant in Germany, fed from its own Brazilian spodumene, serve as reminders that despite the short-term doldrums that persist in lithium, the medium and long-term necessity of developing supply chains both for China and outside China are as strong as ever. Sigma is full steam ahead, talking about stages 2, 3, and 4, based on the strong competitive advantages of spodumene in Minas Gerais, both from a cost and an ESG perspective. Which brings us to today's interview with Blake Hylands, CEO of Lithium Ionic, one of very few ways for public equity investors to play Brazil spodumene. Blake will discuss his plans to follow a similar path of both Sigma and Latin. For disclosure purposes, Rodney and I are advisors to Lithium Ionic, but we are not, of course, financial advisors, and nothing in this video should be considered investment advice. Please do your own research and read the disclaimers at the end of this video. And note that a written summary of this interview will be published in the next edition of RK Equity's Lithium Ion Bull. Please register your email at rkequity.com if you'd like to receive this newsletter directly to your email box. And please make sure to like this video, subscribe to Rockstock Channel, and leave a question or comment below. What do you think of Blake and Lithium Ionic's prospects? What other companies might you be interested to hear from on this channel? As always, we'll begin with a summary synopsis of some key company attributes. Looking at the RK Equity scoreboard, Lithium Ionic, ticker symbol LTH, trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange. It also trades on the US OTC, ticker symbol LTHCF. LTH has a market cap of about 113 million Canadian dollars, or 84 million US dollars. It has several hard rock exploration and development projects in Minas Gerais, Brazil, with its Bandeira asset most advanced at the definitive feasibility study stage. Lithium Ionic recently raised 20 million US dollars through a royalty deal with UK-based private equity firm Appian Capital, and has a current cash balance of about 40 million Canadian dollars. Its top shareholders include some of the most savvy lithium investors in Canada, including Waratah, which helped incubate Lithium Royalty Corp., as well as Power One, who seed-funded world-class success stories in lithium in Latin America, namely Lithium Americas, as well as Neolithium. Lithium Ionic has sell-side analyst coverage from Canaccord, BMO, Stifel, Claris, and Desjardins. If you're interested in receiving any of this research, please email us at rockstockchannel@rkequity.com or tag Rodney or me at RodneyHooper13 or at Lithium Ion Bull at our X handles. Lithium Ionic is active on social media, and you could find them on X at Lithium Ionic. And with that intro out of the way, welcome Blake Hylands for the first time to Rockstock Channel. Could you please give us some of your background, how you came to Lithium Ionic, and then Rodney will dig in with some questions.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate that, and great intro and great introduction to the project, and we'll give a little bit on myself. So I'm a geologist by background, but have spent the last few years working in capital markets as well, and working alongside a team at Troilus Gold, raising the capital there to move that project forward. It was a gold project. We combined raised well over $200 million, moving that project to be the largest undeveloped gold project in the world, or developing gold project in the world. Now almost 15 million ounces. So huge exploration success. Actually started there running the exploration project. And ultimately, I think that is going to be one of the next large gold producers and Canadian producers in the world. So it's going to go through the arduous and longer and longer seemingly process of moving projects in Canada forward, but ultimately has the right team and people in place there now. And that's really coming off of that and quite a lot of other precious metals, iron ore, base metal projects over the years. This project landed on my desk in early 2022. I'd actually looked at joining the company on the board of directors as a bit of an advisor on moving things forward, and started digging into the project, looked at what was happening there. Sigma was starting to take off, saw near-term production, saw how quickly projects could move forward. And most importantly, for myself as a geologist, I'd look at projects and look at scale opportunity. So when I really started digging in on the assets and what was available here, despite being greenfields at the time and extremely early stage, it was obvious that this had the scalability and the opportunity to be a huge project in a belt that reminds me, coming from the gold space, of some of the most important greenstone gold belts in the world, like the Appian, except before anybody had discovered it. So it really felt like an opportunity to be part of a project that was world-class, unique, one of a kind, geologically separated from any others in the world, other than maybe Western Australia. And I had a conversation with some of the founding partners of the team, and they asked me if I would be interested in running the company, and I very much was, and made that transition in 2022. So since then, we've grown the company from 0 tons to over 60 million tons. It continues to grow. It's one of the most unique, high-grade, high-quality districts for hard rock lithium in the world, and we're excited to continue to grow that.
Yeah, that's great. Blake, in your view, how have you experienced operating in Minas Gerais?
It's been a bit of a breath of fresh air. It's a bit like what operating in Canada used to be like. And I say that with a lot of love for Canadian projects, obviously, given my background and where I'm coming from. But we certainly have seen a change in legislation and approach on projects in Canada. And I think that when I look jurisdictionally, we highlight this in our presentation a lot. There's hardly a place you can move faster to get projects like this up and running than Minas Gerais. You have supportive government. You have stakeholders that are engaged, that want to see these projects move forward. You have communities that are seeing the benefit of well-run, relatively small footprint projects that ultimately are resistant to market fluctuations. They're very high quality. They don't produce massive tailings infrastructure. They're ultimately low impact sort of green projects that are feeding a new global initiative to move to electrification of vehicles and battery creation in general. So it's an area that is known for mining. It has a lot of mining expertise. It was developed around mining. And so it really, there are people that work here that understand how to move projects forward, that know mining and see the value in the future of lithium. And so it's been really a breath of fresh air working in Minas Gerais.
And in that same sort of vein, do you believe that Sigma's operation provides a solid base for CapEx, OpEx cost guidance and permitting?
Yeah, I think anytime you can have a mine be built right next door to you as you're starting to build and do it successfully for low cost and have really good operational success, that's massive. I can tell you, and anybody who works in this industry knows that when you start working on a project, one of the first things you do is look around and look at your neighbors. What do they do? Where did they have their successes? Where did they have their failures? And good operators, I think, look there first, and you'll design and look at how you're going to handle yours based very much on what has worked around you, because the investor base is going to understand it works. And ultimately, that's how you're going to secure financing. That's how you're going to move your project forward. And then you can start to build in, different sort of bespoke processing or mining, depending on what you feel is right for your asset after you've done that. So having something like that next door is extremely unique, and was an amazing opportunity to have real time, right in front of us, costs, data, mining type, how are the rocks behaving, how are the deposits behaving. That's pretty wild to have that opportunity to have that right next door. So of course we're going to benefit significantly from that.
And you recently secured a key permitting approval with the approval of the final exploration reports from the Bandeira and Otrolado projects. How is that? How's the construction permit for Bandeira progressing?
I think it ties really well into your first question on Minas Gerais. It's been really nice to have again, an engaged government, engaged officials that have worked with us and communicated really well with us. We have an accelerated permit LOI that allows us to move right through into construction once we secure that, and the committee will sit in the next couple of months here to give us the go ahead to move that project forward. But it is nice that we've had that open dialogue, and they've been at site multiple times and given us feedback of what they'd like to see, what else they're looking for from us, and then we've responded in turn. I think we have one of the best permitting teams in the country, led by Helio Diniz and the team there. Helio's gone through this permit process and permitting in Brazil in really much more complicated jurisdictions than Brazil 5 times before. So this one is a straightforward project. No major community impacts or indigenous community impacts to be concerned about. Again, relatively small footprint. You're not generating generating material, so it's really quite somewhat straightforward, almost like an aggregate project. And so I think as long as we maintain that good dialogue, we continue to do that, we should see the thumbs up from the committee here to move forward with construction in the next couple of months here, and we're very, very excited to get that. It's obviously a key catalyst for us to move the project forward.
And another thing that I was really impressed with, Blake, when I looked through the deck is the excellent infrastructure surrounding your projects. Can you just elaborate a bit so people get a full understanding?
Yeah, I think that's one of the key points about this project. You've got a community of between 40 and 50,000 people right next door to this that are very much keen to have a project move forward. And having that community, there's an airport there. There are paved roads. We have hydroelectric power running directly to the site. We already secured the transformer to be built when in the operation of the project and got that permit done. We've got access to port via road. It's just really all the infrastructure you could possibly look for and want. I turn to Canada. I'm Canadian. Often these projects are 80 kilometers from a road, right? You're going to have to run power lines. You're going to have to figure out how this massive infrastructure cost is going to come in. And it's not a problem with the deposits necessarily. It's not a problem with the people. It's just the way it is, right? It's the reality of mining in different jurisdictions. And I think that for us, we put out a relatively low capex on our feasibility study, and a big reason that we're able to do that, and why we're able to keep a low operating costs as well versus a lot of the world, is directly related to the infrastructure and, of course, our process of that.
And how is the environmental impact assessment progressing?
Yeah, very well. I would circle back to my comment before. The key to all of these permits, all of the the EIA, every environmental step you take and doing things the right way, is that you have a really good dialogue with the stakeholders that are engaged in the project. And I think for us, we've had that, and we've had that from the very beginning. We worked with the same environmental consultants that permitted Sigma, CBL, that's been producing for 30 years to the north of us. We've leaned on them and their expertise. We have really strong permitting experience in our team, Helio, with Paulo, with the rest of our organization. And so, they know these guys, they know these people, they know our people. And so there's a really good dialogue there, and that just continues to help move all those things forward. And so when we look at the project, we don't see any major issues moving forward.
And you recently completed a $20 million royalty agreement with Appian in July. Can you detail the terms and where that places the company regarding your capital needs?
Yeah, it was $20 million US, 2.25% royalty. It's got a full buyback for just over $67 million on that. I think if you look around at royalty agreements in general, it's one of the best I've ever seen, with a full buyback attached to it and a very, very strong valuation put on that percentage. It had a very low impact to the NPV of the project, and we felt like it was a really prudent move for us. It made sense to do something that was non-dilutive in a poor market, and we ended up securing really the most valuable royalty that's ever been issued in the belt. And so I highlight often that the party that we did this with is Appian. They're one of the largest private equity or largest mining private equities in the world. They don't just do random deals with any company. They very much did their due diligence. They looked at this project and they felt like this was a cornerstone investment that they could make in this belt. And I think for us, it was a massive validation to the work that we've already done to be able to get through very extensive due diligence and show that we have a project that's going to work, that their royalty is going to be worth the money they paid, and that they're going to see that come back in spades. So I think it's a huge thumbs up and check mark for anybody looking at this project, and validation.
And I presume then you're well funded after that.
We're in a really good position to move Bandeira forward. Yeah, I think getting that permit would be phenomenal. We could be a little more aggressive too. We are actively working on what the financing stack is going to look like for building the project. We're moving into next stages of engineering and looking to optimize the feasibility we put out earlier this year. But I think for us, it allows us to do everything we need to do to get to that, final investment decision, that final, opportunity to build the project. So we're in really, really good shape there. And given the permit and the line of sight to that equity stack or that cash stack, we could be in a place where we can even be doing some of the earthworks and starting to, build bridges and start the decline for our project as well with that money. So we're really happy with closing that, and it puts us in a very, very strong position moving forward.
And Blake, you entered an option agreement to acquire up to 90% of new Itinga properties. What's the potential that you see there?
I wish we had more cash and more opportunities to buy more things and do more work, because I think, like I said off the hop, the opportunity in this belt is huge. I just think this is going to be, pushing Western Australia as if not the most, one of the top two most important lithium districts in the world. The quality of the material, the scale, the growth. People often talk about lithium's everywhere. You can mine it. It's just like anything else, right? When you're looking at mines, you're looking at deposits, you want to look at the highest grade, the lowest cost, the highest quality, and the biggest scale opportunities. This is one of really only two jurisdictions in the world that have that. And we are in we just got off the starting line, basically, of what's available there. And there's already probably, call it 150 to 200 million tons defined. And that's from, a couple of years of work. So do I think there's a huge upside here? I wish, and of course I'm a geo, I wish we could have 13 to 15 drills running on this thing every day. It would be by far one of the largest lithium districts in the world. So I'm very, very excited for us to start seeing the winds of this market carry us into to new exploration opportunities, and we're really excited to get on some of this new ground.
So you released a feasibility study on the Bandeira lithium project in July. You projected around 180,000 tons of spodumene concentrate, capex of around 266 with 14 years of mine life. Is the plan to kickstart and then expand the mineable resource in time?
It's already going to be bigger. I mean, that feasibility study was based off a resource that was completed in November of 23. We've already put out an updated resource that would take our mine life through 20 years. We know that we can improve the NPV. I think we're very confident that we can look at that 266 US number and maybe be a little more aggressive. I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but we can have a look at that and see if we can optimize the project a little more. And again, we have lots of proof of concept all around us. And same thing with production scale and size. We are looking at ramp up timelines. We're looking at optimizing now, just like anybody does. What I really like about the study we put out is we were conservative. I think we were really conservative. We showed that this is a project that works, and it works in any market. The first 3 years of this project uses a just over $900 spodumene price to move the project forward. We use fast market pricing, and it still pays itself back in sub 4 years, and it ultimately had a 1.3 billion NPV. So you can look at the average price used for spodumene in this and say, oh, that's so high, they need a $2,000 spodumene environment. But that truth is that's later years dragging the average price up. We took a very conservative outlook at the project. I don't think we cut any corners on what the CapEx was going to look like. We didn't cut any corners on what the OpEx could look like. And we were really realistic on what pricing this is going to look like near term. And we still showed a project with, a 1.3 billion NPV. That's already going to be better just based on the resources we have now. So we're excited to optimize. We're excited to grow. But I think what we've done is shown the market that this is a project you can look through the market. You can look through pricing. It's investable today. And I think that's why we can be proud of what we did in 2 years so far, but know that we can't relax now. We got to push harder.
And what would Lithium Ionic's preferred funding structure be to cover CapEx so that you can minimize share dilution?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, what your stack looks like changes all the time, and the whims of that, like I talked about, of the market can change those things as well. If we start seeing lithium price come back up, and it seems like we are, if all the equities seem to turn around and all these companies start building market caps in the billions like they should, then you have a lot more optionality. I think right now in this climate, I think we have a really good path that could lead to a stack that represents itself with prepay options, private debts, and then maybe a little equity stacked on top of that. But we're not solving for a big number here. I mean, realistically, a plus $1 billion NPV project that you can build for less than $300 million is if you switch the commodity around, you'd be blown away, right, by that opportunity. And even comparing ourselves to most projects that require chemical conversion, they're going to be $1 billion to build this kind of project. 266 is extremely manageable, and with our company being around 100 million, it's not out of reach to be able to fund this project. So we are going to look at a lot of those non-dilutive options. They're right in front of us. We need to pick who our partners are going to be and what that looks like. We're doing that now. We're running that process now. I think we have really good options in front of us. But ultimately, I think we look at this CapEx as something that we can get done without diluting our shareholders too much.
And Blake, you've recently expanded the board of directors. So broadly, when are you hoping to look, your rough sort of timeline on construction and production?
Yeah, ultimately the thing that's a little bit out of our control in this moment is the permit. That permit will allow us to construct, and I think it also helps close some of that financing stack. We want to be aggressive. We want to get that in hand and start the process. We do have some cash to begin at this point anyway. So we want to get that permit in hand, start building the asset in 2025, and be in a position by mid-26 to be producing. So really, for us to go from discovery hole in early or mid-2022 to producing in 2026, I think is a huge technical achievement. I'm very, very proud of our team, what they've done so far, and I'm very much looking forward to the next 18 months.
4 years exploration to production, that's faster than Pilbara did it, if you could pull that off.
I think it's right out in front of us, so we just need to keep executing.
You're just comparing kind of Brazil to Western Australia. I mean, those are both kind of iron ore country. Like, we've done a lot of business historically in iron ore in both locations. So I always talk about, life in Western Australia, or life is good in LIFE is good in Australia. Life is good in Brazil. You mentioned in terms of funding, a process. Have you appointed a bank for a strategic process?
Yeah, we've been working with BMO for the last few months, almost a year now, and looking what those partners are, and we've fast tracked that now, obviously with line of sight to the permit. So that process is underway, and I think we have a lot of good funding opportunities moving forward for us right now. And like, they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars in this space over the last couple of years. They've been one of the leading names in getting projects built in the lithium space. We're very, very excited with the team there and what we're seeing from the feedback they're getting in the process.
I know they represented Lithium Americas and helped bring in GM. What do you think the China versus non-China dynamic might look like for Lithium Ionic? I know like Latin Resources had a process underway, and then they decided to just sell the whole business. But how do you view China ex China, but also OEMs versus battery versus Japanese traders, versus just selling it to China, who have offtakes with one of your peers, Atlas?
Yeah, like I think I guess first, congratulations to Latin. They did a great job there, and that Pilbara transaction was good for them and their shareholders. I think they did very well there. Chris and his team I love that asset, and of course we have the extension of it going to the east, and we're very, very excited for continuing to develop that and the value that we're going to see out of there. But look, I think one of the beautiful things about Brazil is it remains open to the world. I think it checks the boxes for so many of these companies, and jurisdictionally, Brazil is amazing globally, and a 100-year plus trusted trading partner to the entire world. But also, again, I focus back in on a deposit like this that in a space where, of course, China has dominated consumption and production through conversion. I was just in Amsterdam a week or two ago here, and you could see Europe is coming online. I know you referenced the AMG plant, ribbon cutting. A lot of our team was actually there to see that. It's fantastic. And we're going to continue to see Europe bring converters online. I think we saw Tesla bring their gigafactories online. This is one of the fastest industrial developments since the Second World War. So, the market is changing there. And the beauty of it, I think, is that we're going to produce one of the cleanest, highest quality, low cost materials in the world. And we're in a jurisdiction that is a friendly trading partner to anybody and everybody. So it leaves a lot of options and opportunities open to us. And through this process, gives us different ways to look at how we want to strategize moving forward.
Well, that's great. We had Anna Cabral on the podcast a little while ago, and she was emphasizing exactly that you're open to the world, China ex China, as well as the very strong manufacturing base within Brazil, on top of it being a strong resource base. So there's been a lot of talk and focus on this African supply, which has largely been going to China, but Brazil. Chris Gale and Latin Resources, the valuation of that company in US dollar terms was $440 million. You're here trading at about 80 million US dollars. And so could you just compare like size, stage of development, just from a relative value point of view? That seems pretty significant.
Yeah, thanks for that painful reminder. Where we're trading. But I point to that a lot because I think, look, they were 71 million tons in a resource, right? I think we're about 61, very similar. We have the extension of their deposit going to the east in Salinas, and it's growing consistently. We're through a feasibility. They were through a PEA. I know they were working on their fees. And honestly, when I look apples to apples, very, very similar. They were taking a different approach to how they would mine it than us. And but ultimately, what I like about their transaction is I think we can show a 4x multiple to the investor now, right? Like you can look at this and you don't have to sit in a room and say don't worry, lithium's coming back one day. It is. We all know that pricing is going to come back, and it's going to, have to level out somewhere that a lot of these projects can actually work and feed the supply that demand is asking for. But right now, today, in this market, in this environment, there's a 4x in this investment. And I think I love that about their transaction. I love that it was, one of the largest lithium companies in the world coming out of Oz and stepping into this belt and showing that consolidation will eventually happen here. And it's starting to heat up, maybe faster than people thought. And so, yeah, I continue to look at our project and tell people this is massively undervalued, not because one day lithium will be, $20,000 or $25,000. It's massively undervalued today based on those types of transactions. So, I think there's huge upside here now. And then as the macro turns around, that's when then real money starts to be made.
You made a good point. I mean, Pilbara, ventured far away from their Western Australian backyard, right? They didn't, make an acquisition with several of the other Western Australian developers as they could have. They didn't come to Quebec or Ontario as they could have, but they, I think it's a great validation for Brazil as a jurisdiction. And also, I mean, our viewers kind of know we're in all of the above, kind of strategy. We're for, DLE, brines, sediments, but from a keep it simple, stupid, keep it spodumene stupid, point of view, we've been kind of touting that for a very long time. If you don't have to build conversion and you have optionality just to be, a spodumene producer, limited technical risk, limited capex risk, $266 million, and in a jurisdiction where it's now proven you can move very fast. Like the whole narrative for lithium, the structural deficit thesis we all espoused for a few years ago was, battery plants can be built in 2 years, but mines take 10 years. Well, mines in Africa, and mines in Brazil take a lot shorter than 10 years. So we think Brazil is on the map legitimately through Sigma and Latin. And there's really only two public ways to play meaningfully, left beyond those. And there's you and there's Atlas. So thank you very much for this detailed overview of Lithium Ionic for the first time. We look forward to tracking your progress and having you on again, in the coming months.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for making the time.